$250 now, $500 bid now, $250 now, $500 now, $750 bid now, $1,000 now, $1,250 now, $250. And good morning from Dallas, Texas. We are at the intersection of the North Dallas Tollway and 635. We welcome you to another episode of the Mike McGavel Jones Show. And today I am excited and really pumped up about our guest for today's show, and that's going to be Barrett Bray from Oklahoma. And Barrett Bray is the 2018 International Auctioneer Champion. He was just named that on July the 20th of July, and it's really quite interesting to see the path that we've traveled the last 10 years or so. So welcome to the show, Barrett.
Thanks, Mike. I'm really glad to be here.
I'm glad you're here, too. I know you're in town visiting with our auction school, America's Auction Academy in Dallas. You came in this morning. You actually have your grandparents live very close to the school, so that worked out great. You got to see family, and you got to see your first family and the second family.
Absolutely, yeah. It worked out perfect.
So for folks that are not aware of the International Auctioneer Championship, which is a contest that is presented by the National Auctioneers Association, which, of course, I'm very familiar with, I'd like to go and talk a little bit about your history. Go back to when you were a kid, and not just so much right away into the auction business, but give me a little background about you and, where you grew up and your family situation and all that.
Sure, absolutely, yeah. Again, Barrett Bray. I'm from Oklahoma City originally, and I'm still there today. Grew up there, just normal childhood. Growing up, my parents are there. I've got a younger sister, and we all still live really, really close to each other. So I'm a first-generation auctioneer, but I grew up going to auctions with my dad. Anytime there was one around, estate sales, that's the majority of what we did that I was around when I was growing up. But was around the auction industry forever. Never, ever dreamed that I would end up in it myself. But found my, after college, moved back to Oklahoma City. I actually got a degree in theology and biblical studies. So kind of worked in ministry for a while, but I really felt like I was needing to do something else and being out in people and out in just kind of the world doing stuff. So shortly before my wife and I got married, I got a job with an oil and gas company out of Oklahoma, traveling and just doing landman work there. And then shortly after we got married, there was a dip in the market in 2008, and I was a low guy on the totem pole, so put me in a position where I really needed to figure out what I was going to be doing. So there was there's an auction company there in Oklahoma run by my in-laws, and they had an inventory manager, a guy managing all of their stuff that was retiring, and I had previously done that for the federal government, for the FAA there in Oklahoma City. So we came to an agreement that I would step in for a short period of time until they could find someone who was the right fit. And that gave me a time to also find a job that was going to be the right fit, thinking I was still going back into oil and gas. And after a little while, we realized, oh, wow, the auction industry is a good fit for me. So that was in 2008, and I've been a full-time auctioneer ever since.
So you and I met when you came to auction school, and that would have been back in 2009. Tell me a little bit about how you ended up at that time. It was the Texas Auction Academy. Of course, now we're America's Auction Academy as of this June. It's kind of interesting how this all came together, because we rebranded in June, and then you win the International Championship in July, and now you're here telling your story, and it's a great success story. So go back to 2008, 2009 when you made the decision to come see us.
Yeah, well, I mean, when we came to that decision that the auction industry was a fit and that I was a fit for it, I knew that I wanted to do, just the best job possible. I had worked really behind the scenes and as a ringman for that year, but I knew that, becoming an auctioneer was going to be the next step on the path. So started researching around and looking at the different auction schools that are available, and it became really, really clear to me that the Texas Auction Academy was where I wanted to go. So my grandparents, who I stayed with last night, lived in the same place back 9 years ago. This week is when I came down for auction school. And, it worked out well. I was able to stay with them and be in class. And obviously, I'd been working in the industry for a year almost before I came into auction school. So it was easy to pick up, but I really wanted to focus on my chant and make sure that I could soak everything up that I could. And it was, hands down, the best decision that I'd made in my career to go through and to come down to Dallas and to go through it that way.
And I know that you joined us again last year. You were doing some prep, I think, for a license, and so you came back. About a year ago?
Yeah, it was about a year ago or so. I think we sat down, and I had stepped away from the company I was previously with. Just felt a desire to kind of have my own deal and test myself. So we launched our own company, my wife and I, in January of this year, and Oklahoma's not a licensed state, so I had never pursued the license, but I knew it's something that I wanted to do if I was going to be reaching out and moving around at all. So came through and sat through the licensing portion of the class again and got to reconnect with you, and I think we've talked 2 or 3 times whenever I've had questions over the last 10 years, whenever I felt like I could reach out to you. So that was great to be able to come back and sit through again.
Sure. Well, of course, now you're always welcome.
Well, thanks.
Even more, like every class, because I know that later today you're going to be working with all of our students. Each student that's enrolled, you'll be working with them one-on-one this afternoon before you head back to Oklahoma City.
Yeah, and I'm so excited to sit down with them and do that. Obviously, the chant is so much of a core of what has built my career, and it all started 9 years ago. So to be able to potentially give any bit of a springboard to any of these new students to strengthen the industry moving forward is a pretty great honor.
So when did you actually join the National Auctioneer Association?
I actually joined the NAA in 2009 at auction school.
When we twisted your arm?
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Yeah, we're pretty good at twisting arms. Well, we have a philosophy, and this goes back to when I was in auction school 40 years ago. Actually, it was 40 years ago this year.
Yeah.
I had an instructor, and I think I've mentioned this before in different venues. I had one of my favorite instructors at the time was a guy named Gary Ryther, and Gary says, when you go home, you make sure that you join the national and you join your state association, and that was the number one thing that he told me to do. And I did it in '79, in January of '79. And you know what? You don't realize when somebody that has already made it in the business tells you you need to do this, you need to do this.
Absolutely. And I'll say that you were that guy for me. I mean, I still remember to this day sitting in class and you really, really telling how important it was to be a part of your state association, the national association. That's why I made the decision. Unfortunately, the company that I was with didn't have the same mentality, and I spent the majority of the last 10 years in what I like to call an auction bubble, having to kind of figure out my own way and really try to grow based on just my own mentality. It really forced me to innovate, which was a good thing. Yep. But when I stepped out on my own, I knew that I wanted to do something different, and that's when I got much more involved with the National Auctioneers Association, the Oklahoma State Association, and hands down, that has been the biggest catalyst to all that's happened to me in the last year.
Well, and I know that you have gotten involved with a designation called the CAI program in Bloomington, Indiana, which is a class that's been created over years. Originally, it was the Auction Marketing Institute, which then the National Auctioneer Association supported but did not control. And then while I was on the board, we actually took over the management of AMI. And now it's basically the National Auctioneer Education Trustees.
Right.
And so I know you're taking the class, the CAI program, Certified Auctioneers Institute, which is really the designation for our industry to take yourself to the next step. So tell me about your experience. Tell me about your class, and maybe you want to mention a few people that have been influential.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I know you've got some folks.
Yeah, absolutely. CAI was, I'd say, the second best decision that I ever made to really jump into that and do that. Now, I had done a different designation before. I did the ATS, which was Auction Technology Specialist, which has now been branded into Auction Marketing Management, really taking advantage of using technology and using marketing methods to be able to better yourself as an auctioneer, as a company. Since then, I've also done the Benefit Auction Specialist, and that's a lot of work that I do. But CAI, the Certified Auctioneers Institute, is held on the campus of Indiana University in Bloomington. Generally considered to be a master's degree in the auction industry. It's held for a week straight over 3 years. So you go for a week, you have projects, and you stay in touch, and you do things over the next year. You go back for year number 2 for a week, and I will actually be completing my CAI designation in March of 2019. We're just about 6 months out. I'm really excited to get back. Really, the thing that I've taken away the most is the friendships and the mentality of sharpening each other and strengthening each other in group that I consider my family now, my auction family. I mean, these are people. I think I talked to 3 of my classmates on the way down to Texas yesterday, and actually my advisor in the program has become one of my best friends and a very strong mentor of mine. His name is Mr. Whitey Mason, also out of Oklahoma. So we do some work together, and he really has made it a point of really trying to sharpen me as well, doing stuff.
Well, I've known Whitey for a long, long time, and a great auctioneer, and a great guy. Just he's a mentor for a lot of folks, and I remember when he started getting really involved.
Yeah.
You know, he's somewhat younger than I am, but it's been fun to watch Whitey and really what the Education Institute has done. You know, when we took over the management of AMI, I was fortunate enough to be the vice president of the NAA, and I was the first officer of the NAA to actually serve on the EI trustee board.
Okay.
So I kind of seen it from its infancy to now, and it's really people don't realize the impact that the CAI program has on the people who graduate. It's a 3-year program. It's a week at a time, but you bond with that group of people over that 3-year period, and so now you have an entirely new source of information and support group and network.
Well, and I'd say it's not just your classmates that you really build those bonds with. The instructors that are in, I mean, I've built some fantastic relationships, and you know, that's given me the opportunity to reach out to people to ask questions whenever I have any sort of input. If I, you know, what's your opinion on the best way to do this? But the instructors and the students that are in the classes around you, because all 3 classes are there at the same time. So there's some guys who was a class number 3 guy when I came in as class 1 who has become one of my best friends, and we talk once a week. There's another guy from class 2. There's guys that are in the class below me, and we'll have another class coming in this next year. You really build relationships with everyone while you're there, and you get to spend a week surrounded by, 100 to 150 auctioneers. Really, you know, immersing yourself, and it's a baptism in the auction industry is almost a way to consider it. I mean, you really find yourself going into it, and then you come out with a different perspective and a different mentality going on.
Well, it's kind of like, I like to compare it to golf. If you play with great golfers, you become better. Even if you don't become a champion or win a tournament, you're still your style, your approach, just your entire confidence level changes when you play with somebody better. And so I think that's what happens. So tell me about your decision to go to Jacksonville and how that all worked out.
Well, I mean, again, this kind of follows in on my decision to jump in more intensely and more, I guess, intentionally with my state and the National Association. I attended my first state association convention in February of this year, and really was just excited to build relationships and kind of see what the education opportunities had, you know, and just be a part of it. They made an announcement 5 minutes before they were taking the last entries into the Oklahoma State Auctioneers Contest. And I heard the announcement, and again, Whitey Mason, he turned over and looked at me, and he said, "You're entering." And I just started laughing, and I said, "There's no way. I've never seen an auction contest. I've never been to one. I don't know what I'd be doing." And he said, "It doesn't matter. You're going to do it." And with some, I'll say some strong motivation, he ended up getting me involved in that. So I was very, very blessed, very surprised, but honored as well to win the Oklahoma State Championship in February. So as the Oklahoma State champion, that got me a free entry into the IAC, and came down to Jacksonville really with a mentality of, wow, you know, if I could make finals in my first year, that would be just an unbelievable opportunity and something to really hang my hat on. So came down to Jacksonville, not knowing many people other than just the group that I had gotten to know through CAI and things like that, and ended up going through the process, and never would have dreamed that I would have been first-time conference attendee, first-time contestant, and IAC champion.
2018 International Auctioneer Champion. That's not bad.
I'll take it.
Yeah, it was fun. We were talking earlier. We were at the school before we came here to do the podcast, and we were talking about a photo that we took, and so our friend that runs another auction school up in Iowa, Paul C. Barrett, was the first international champion, and Paul won in '88, and then I won in '98, and then in 2008 we had C.D. Butch Booker from Washington State, and Butch and I have been great friends forever. And I think I'll be wrong about this probably, but he'll probably text me and tell me I'm wrong. But I think he was in like 16 or 18 contests before he won. And then, of course, you winning in 2018. So we had 4 champions based on basically the 4 decades. And so I think what's neat about that is, Paul being the first champion, and then the fact that I won, I'm just happy about it myself. I'm glad I don't have you guys to compete with anymore. That's what I tell people all the time. I'm glad I won the international, but good grief, I probably couldn't win it today. But on the other level, you had CD Butch Booker, and Butch, it took him the most number of times for anyone, I believe, and he's got all these trophies. He's got like a room full of trophies. He's got a trophy room of IACs, seconds, and thirds. And then you come in and win your first time out. And let me tell you, the buzz when you won was something else, because you were a great competitor and you knew your stuff. And I think that's a big part of it. I don't know if people understand what are you aware of the point system? And
yeah,
why don't you tell them a little bit about that? And what did you are performing before a live group,
sure,
a live audience. And
yeah.
So tell them about
it's a real auction, and that's the question I get the most is, so you just get up and do a chant and they hear you, and I say, no, you're actually selling items, and people are actually bidding on them. It's a real auction that's going on at the time. It's just you have a group of judges sitting in front of you. So the contest is split into 3 divisions. There's a junior championship, and then there's a men's and a women's division in the IAC, the main competition. Within that competition, there's a preliminary round, which is based on bid calling and is based on the auction. The points are awarded for your stage presence, your introduction of yourself, your description of your items, but then it goes into the chant itself, and you're actually judged on a points basis based on your rhythm, appropriate speed, clarity, accuracy, if you are actually taking bids where they're at and making sure you're not missing anything. It really goes through the whole deal. Poise is a big part of it. So after the preliminary round, they take the top 15, and the top 15 men went into the finals. Before we went into the second bid calling round, there was an interview portion where everybody's sequestered in a room, and they bring you out one at a time. You don't know the questions that are going to be asked, and you're standing. And this is what I tell people: it's hard enough to try to feel comfortable speaking about something if you're not sure what you're going to be asked anyway. But when you know that you're being asked that question in front of a room of your colleagues and peers who all have a very good understanding of the industry, it really puts it puts it on you. It's pretty heavy to take on there. So but you go in one at a time. They ask 3 questions about the industry, and you're expected to give an answer. It's not an issue of, it's not a right or wrong answer. It's simply a mentality of, is this person well versed? Is this person knowledgeable about the industry? And would they make a good ambassador for the National Association for the Industry?
I remember when I started competing. I think my first contest was in '91. It took me 8 times to win. And with no assumptions that I ever would win. In the '91, I found out how and exactly what I didn't know, and I didn't make the cut in '91. And in '96, my sister won the women's, and I took 3rd. So I'm thinking, hey man, this is going to happen.
I can do this.
Yeah. And look out, world. Next year it's all me. It's all me. And I went to Nashville and I did not make the cut. And that was a very humbling experience. And then you talk about you're from Oklahoma City, and then to come back the next year and win in Oklahoma City. So I have a great love for Oklahoma City, of course.
Absolutely.
That's like being home. What did you do to prepare for the contest? Did you do preparation, or how did you know?
I did some preparation. Yeah. I knew that it was going to be very similar to the Oklahoma contest. Mm-hmm. So, I've typically said that I feel the most myself when I'm on a stage in front of people.
Yep.
Now, I will also say that I don't think I'm a typical IAC champion either. I think I'm a little bit backwards on the deal. Simply because I was not new to the association, but at least new to conference and show. I wasn't a person who was well known, who had gone through it before. But I'm also the person who I was probably more nervous on the bid calling portion than I was in the interview portion. I mean, as hard as it is to jump up there, the interview was what I knew would probably be my strength, and being able to stand up and just talk about whatever it was that they were asking, and that really is what I believe won it for me. Not to diminish my bid calling chance at all, because you have to have that to even get into the finals. But I think the interview is really what took it for me. In preparation, I watched the NAA puts out an IAC live video where they actually have commentators and they do interviews in between the rounds. I watched through the entire 2017 IAC, and then I pulled up some of the videos of past champions and just hearing exactly what they said and kind of what the mentality was on it.
You can actually go to the internet and see every single champion selling all the way back to 88. Much like the LMA or the Livestock Marketing Association, you can go back to the 60s and see those auctioneers that specialize in selling cattle.
Right.
And it's quite fascinating. I mean, I've enjoyed watching those. And we had the 65 world champion livestock auctioneer in our hometown. He owned the sale barn. So I was already exposed to champions. Well, obviously your chance good enough. I was privileged and honored to actually I talked to you right before you went up for the final. So I was, I think we took a picture and we were talking about, well, good luck, and you just don't know how it's going to turn out. But I think I was more excited to see you win it than when I won it, because when it happens to you, it's like, did that just happen?
Right.
And so watching you was phenomenal. And Texas has a great legacy of champions, IAC champions. We had a great run. I mean, we had Andy Dunning win. We had Wayne Wheat in '99. Of course, I won, and I'm sure there's one or two others that I don't remember right now off the top of my head. But the interesting thing is there's 3 states that have really dominated the IAC championship for whatever reason. I don't know. I haven't studied it that much, but Ohio is phenomenal. I mean, Ohio and Texas were neck and neck until about a year ago. And then Oklahoma has a great history of IAC champions as well. Tracy Sullivan, a friend of ours for many years, he was one of the first from Oklahoma to win. Greg Highsmith, who used to be an instructor at our school, who's been with Ritchie Brothers for years and years, and also lives on a ranch up in Oklahoma. And now you, so that's 3 or 4 right there. And then Amy Assiter is an IAC champion. So it's. And the 3 states have pretty well dominated the thing. So we'll just do a little shout out to the other states and say, hey, we're waiting for you.
Hey, Oklahoma's ready.
So you win the championship. Tell me what happened immediately thereafter.
Oh, a whirlwind is what happened, is what I'd say. From winning and going through the photo op, and really, like you said, trying to let it even soak in that this is even happening. It seems so surreal at the moment, and it lasts for at least 2-3 days later. So immediately after the competition, we do photos, and then you're of course greeted by all the auctioneers that are there and spend time and just have a celebration afterward. The next day, you're kind of being put into and
the PR circles.
The PR machine starts revving up right there. So jumping in, doing the kids auction at Conference and Show was a lot of fun, and then getting all of the photos for the Auctioneer magazine, and just for whatever's going to be going out from there.
And then the Auctioneer magazine just came out this week. In fact, I was really cute. I was looking at your Facebook page, and how are you listed on Facebook? Because we want people to join you.
Barrett Bray is my personal account.
Okay.
And of course our business account is Bray Auctions.
Okay. And so Barrett, you go to the post office, or they deliver the mail, and you're on the cover of the Auctioneer magazine. And they don't always put the champions by themselves. I mean, I know the year that my sister won, they had the Hall of Fame along with the champions, and then I think I don't even know that they put us on the cover. I think we're just in there. So there's no real protocol to it, but I saw the picture that you posted, because you took a picture of the magazine, and it was on your Facebook page, and we actually stopped. I was hoping to have a copy of the magazine today. However, you gave it to your grandmother. And let me tell you something. When I left Oklahoma City on my way back to Dallas, my first stop was on I-35 in Gainesville, Texas, to my grandmother's house.
Yep.
And I had my trophy just like you have yours, and I set it on her coffee table, and that was our moment that they had waited for, not even ever knowing that it was going to happen, or even that there was a contest that mattered. But that was a celebration because my first auctions were with my grandparents. My grandfather took me to auctions. My grandmother would probably reluctantly go along. And then for you to have your grandparents living, now where do they actually live?
Just here in Frisco.
They're in Frisco.
Yep.
So anyway, I just think that's cool as all get out.
Oh, that's great.
But I, grandparents are special people, and they have a lot of influence over us. And so if you were going to give your magazine away before the show,
that was the one person who's going to.
That's the one I'll give you a pass on.
I appreciate it.
So I understand you have some exciting news coming up when you leave here. This is breaking news from Dallas. I'll say it just like they do on the news. Late breaking news from Dallas. Barrett Bray has an announcement. So what's going on?
Well, I don't know as much of an announcement. It's something I'm very, very excited about and excited to jump into this week. So this is Monday. I am going to be driving back to Oklahoma City tonight. I've got meetings, and I'm going to be packing tomorrow, and then I fly out first thing on Wednesday morning. I am very, very proud to say, very honored. It's an unbelievable opportunity, and I'm excited to step in as the newest crew member of Barrett Jackson Classic Car Auctions. I'm flying out to Vegas, and I will be working as an announcer for Barrett Jackson up on the stage and doing that. And I'll tell you, Mike, that's been something before I ever even got into the auction industry. I always loved Barrett Jackson simply because I'm Barrett Bray, and it was about the only other time I ever heard the name Barrett anywhere.
Yeah.
So I've been aware of Barrett Jackson. My dad and his best friend were car guys forever, and his best friend was like a second dad. He'd gone out to several times, and I'd always wanted to make that a point of going out to Barrett Jackson, checking it out. And then, of course, when I got into the auction industry, the thought of, man, if I could ever make my way to the biggest stage in the world.
Yep.
There, it'd be pretty amazing. Yep. So I had the opportunity to speak with them while I was in Jacksonville. Actually, before I won the competition, and they saw something in me as far as the voice that they were looking for, and also the industry knowledge I think that goes into it as well. Someone that actually personalizes both of those things, and I'm very, very excited to go and have my first Barrett Jackson sale in Vegas this week.
I've been to Barrett Jackson, and of course I know everybody that works Barrett Jackson previously and now, and I can't think of anybody more deserving. And it's a testament to who you are and what you want to be when you grow up. And even though you're very young, but wise in other ways. And I've seen how you treat people. I see how you were with our students this morning. They all wanted a picture with you and the trophy, and I love that. I love that humble nature, and I think you'll be an outstanding addition to the Barrett Jackson team. It is one of the greatest stage and probably one of the greatest advertising tools that the auction industry has ever had, because it runs all the time. There's only 3 or 4 major classic car sales of notoriety that have their own TV shows, and so you will be in the spotlight. And you're young in the industry, even though you went to school 10 years ago or 9 years ago. The world's your oyster, as they say. You don't hear that a lot anymore. But we're certainly proud of everything that you're doing and what you'll continue to do, and of course we want you to be a part of America's Auction Academy from now on. I'd love to have you come down and spread the gospel of auction. There we go. And any final words before we wrap this episode up?
I would just say I feel incredibly, incredibly blessed. Over the last year, it's been a quite of a roller coaster of emotions in deciding to step out on our own and starting something, and really seeing the support and the encouragement that the auction industry has given, even from the small number of people that I knew. That of course has grown now, and to be able to be in the position that I'm at, I would just say to anybody out there, whatever industry you're in, keep on with it. Push forward. You never know when something is going to change at any moment.
Believe in your dream.
Believe in your dream. Work hard for it, and surround yourself with people who can strengthen you and who you can pour into as well and help. And always have that humble mentality and moving forward, and you'll have the opportunity. So I'm glad to have the opportunity, and I'm very, very happy to be here today.
You have the servant's heart. You will be going to St. Jude Children's Hospital.
Yes,
that's going to be coming up very soon. When do you go?
That is the end of October. I believe it's the 29th and 30th of October. We're going to go to St. Jude's, the main campus there in Memphis, Tennessee, and we will be doing a toy auction for the children of St. Jude's.
Okay, and you have just a quick shout out. I know we're out of time because I've already gotten the signal.
Yeah.
It went by quick, didn't it? You have a compadre that on the women's side. So
Yes.
you want to do a shout out to your
To my co-champion?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Emily Crowell, how are you today? We love you, and I'm so proud of you as well. So I hope you're doing great.
Yep. And she'll be at St. Jude, and I'm going to be at St. Jude to
Yep.
watch you do all these great things and be with the kids and have an auction with the children. So, we're very proud of you. And so I want to thank our 2018 International Auctioneer Champion in the men's division, Mr. Barrett Bray from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. That's fun. That's 2 international champions because I won there and you
Absolutely.
came from there. So Oklahoma's. We got to get some Texas people.
We
back
got something in the water in
I
Oklahoma.
got to get some Texas people involved. Well, look, we want to do a shout out to the National Auctioneer Association, all of our members and the folks that support us, and our family members, because you can't do it by yourself. And I know you've got a wife that supports you greatly. So, on behalf of everyone at the Mike McGavel Show here in Dallas at Lincoln Center. The broadcast center for our show. Thank you, Zach. You didn't have much to say today, but we sure enjoyed having you produce this. Thank you very much. See you, Brett.